There we go.
Hi guys, Andy N, Spoken Naval, back in the house on a sunny Sunday afternoon. It's lovely today around here, cold but sunny. Now, it's always great. I love doing podcasts on Sunday afternoon, and we've got a lovely lady with us today as well. And I've promised her already I will pronounce her name by the correct method, or like what doctors have been doing for her. The doctors have been calling her Kay Channon. It's not, it's Kay Channon with a C, right? So Kay, first of all, then, tell us, obviously, people don't know you, and I always say, if not, why not? So tell us, obviously, big people, where you come from and where your creativity started from, and we'll start from there.
So I come from Dorset, which is famous for landmarks like Durdle Door and uh, fossil hunters like Mary Anning. And in my town, there is a lovely tourist beach and a place called Sand World where they make sculptures from sand. It's beautiful scenery. Weather is changeable, I'll say. And there are lots of boats and kite surfers around. It's a really nice tourist town. Bit dead in the winter, like most places, but yep, that's where I'm from, in the
Really?
southwest, so quite away from yourself.
Oh yeah, I've got a friend actually, one that lives up in Parkstone, which is Bournemouth. I used to have a band going on that way. I did back when I had hair, and I've also got a friend. I used to have a photographer friend who used to live in Christchurch, which is very close to you actually, down that way. So
It is quite close, yeah.
yeah,
Christchurch is quite close to Dorset, yeah.
I had been Dorset with a while. It was a few years ago, certainly. So back when I had hair. So yeah, it was a few years back. Yeah, lovely hair. And completely, you're all right. You're completely right what you're saying there about that as well. Now, obviously, we're here to talk about you and your creativity, because anyone that see your bio, which you very kindly sent over to me, you know,
Yeah.
you're a real busy lady you are, and you're as busy as I am, and that says a lot, right? So, tell us, obviously, first of all, where all your creativity came from, then.
I think my creativity really started with my first degree, which was in theatre, which as an 18, nearly 19-year-old, I thought in my naivety, I'm so glad it didn't, that it was going to make me an actor or a director.
Mm.
And what actually it taught me was there is so much more to this umbrella term of theatre. And I homed in on writing
Mm.
since probably about 2015, since one of my teachers kindly pointed out that one of my plays reminded him of a poem called Four Quartets by T.S. Eliot.
Ooh.
And that's when I started writing poetry. It was actually read by Ted Hughes, which I know of already, which kind of helped.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to write something like that. So that was like the beginning of The Dark Side of the Light, which is a very long title poem, which I won't read today. But we'll probably talk a bit about that
Yeah,
later.
yeah, of course, of course.
So yeah, that's kind of where that started. And then my YouTube channel and the filming aspect was really a COVID shielding process because there was no theatre as such. So I had to make my own film and use my own effects and learn about like what you can do with TikTok, what looks really bad and what looks pretty cool when you're actually in the same room. So
Brilliant,
that's where
brilliant.
that aspect started. That's pretty much me in short.
Brilliant. Let's talk about the film side then, first of all, because I know at the moment obviously, you're doing a Hunger Games, aren't you, at the moment, where you're
Yes.
actually redoing it into different sensibilities and different outlooks and stuff. So tell us then, what made you want to go down this path for this, first of all, then?
Uh
You've done, is it 4 chapters, haven't you? So and I know there's more to come.
yeah, I've done actually three and a bit. Four isn't fully out yet. So
Hmm.
it's all been filmed. It just takes, as you can probably appreciate, a while to get it all uploaded, everybody credited on YouTube, get all the music synced. What made me want to do it? Again, I hate to be cliche, but there was a lot going on during COVID that my mind kept going, this is a lot like the fictitious universe of the Hunger Games, both in book form and in film form. And it was like my life was becoming more and more like the Hunger Games. People, I would see videos of like people fighting over food, even fighting over toilet rolls, which I'm sure, well, it still astounds me, as I'm sure it does many people, why you would fight over toilet rolls when there is something like COVID going on. But yeah, that was sort of the spark for it. I could see so many parallels, and I was like, everybody thinks this is just a, young adult novel with a love triangle in it and a male hero and a female hero, arguably two male heroes. And actually, it's quite political. And then I looked around, and there was a few scholars that had written a few books actually about how political and philosophical the trilogy was. So I was like, oh, so I'm not the only one. So let's explore this, and then let's throw my kind of disability element in there, but without being obvious. So like, you don't always see my wheelchair, for example, but you might see some medical equipment, but you might not fully understand why at first. So disability isn't the central thing, but like my identity is in there as well, as part of that, to try and appeal to the whole fandom as well as scholars. So yeah.
Yeah, it's great stuff. I've seen the three. I thought I would show part four was actually part four or a segment, like you said. But I've definitely been following. It's really great stuff, and it's really. How did you find? And obviously, when you're looking at this and you're doing the rewriting of it and the editing, what you've done, was it quite a difficult process for you to do this? Because we're trying to work out what direction you want to take all of it and the variations you made on the text.
Yeah, I think the hardest part of it um was editing it. Was like, I've got 16 months worth of film. Basically, even if on a day I picked up my phone for 3 minutes, like that's on my phone, and it was just kind of like, after the shielding program ended, which was incredibly long for myself, it was sort of like, so you have all this stuff and it's really powerful, but what do you actually want to say, and what order do you want to say it in? And I think I still have doubts about that sometimes, because I'm doing it as part of my PhD, and because of that, I have to justify why I'm doing these film sections in a form of a very, very long essay, basically, in chapters. And sometimes it's very hard to justify that, because it was literally on the spur of the moment, and it was very much because of the outbreak of COVID. So it's of its time, but not of its time, because obviously the Hunger Games still has a huge fandom, and I believe the prequel is coming out in November this year. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I did read about that. I've seen, yikes, seen the first two definitely. I don't know if I've seen the other two. But anyway, that's a story of another day. That one me. So I'm one of
Yeah.
these sort of people. I'm really bad with films. Sometimes I can spend ages watching loads, and I forget what I've watched sometimes.
Yeah.
So I know what I'm like. But yeah, no, obviously it's worth mentioning. Obviously, like besides this Hunger Games project, you're involved in quite a lot of other stuff as well. Like I know, obviously,
Yeah.
you're a disabled arts online blogger as well. And I
Yes.
did find you're a qualified university lecturer as well. So tell us first of all about the disability arts online then. And then I want to ask you about lecturing as well.
Disability Arts Online blog is entirely voluntary, and it's, what I like about it is it's free in a sense that I can write about what I want, as long as I'm not, which I would never be offensive towards other people's disabilities or my own. Everything is checked by an editor or assistant editor. And I think what I enjoy most about it is actually similar to what you do, interviewing other artists or
Mm,
creative persons with a disability that make music, poetry, or perhaps just want to raise awareness of what their life is like. So they want to come talk to me. Actually, that's really fun. the thing that takes the most time is converting the whole interview into text format for people that identify as having a hearing disability or that need it in a written format in order to access what we're saying.
Oh yeah,
Otherwise,
that does take
I
a
would
while.
I would do a lot more if I didn't have to do that step. But at the same time, I think it's really important that I do that step because it's a disability arts platform. But yeah, I sometimes I enjoy that more than putting my own writing out there, which can be anything from a workshop I've done to a poetry book review to some of my own poems to a comment on a place I've been. So they're usually quite short and concise, unless they're an interview. Obviously, that can run for several pages because a 30-minute interview is a lot to transcribe.
Yeah,
So
completely,
yeah, that's
completely.
what I like
Yeah,
about it.
Amanda, my wife, I know she's done transcribing for people before now on their podcasts, and I know it can take a long, drawn out process. And
Yeah.
I know the ones she's done were 2 hour podcast as well. So it's like,
Whoa.
no.
Yeah.
So I remember that well when she did them. Yeah, definitely. So understandable. Now, obviously, you said before talking about the transcript. I know you used to run a podcast at one point, didn't you, as well? Because I've been listening to them on SoundCloud as well. Now, obviously, that podcast doesn't look like it's active at the minute, but tell us about how that appeals for you, that process, and when you was doing interviews like that.
Oh, I think was that the something called pens to paper,
I'll
or was
just
that
tell.
not what you?
I'll just tell you. Actually, I came across it before I did. Oh, where did I see it?
Probably an older. I just want to make sure
Ah,
I'm
there we are.
referring to the
Yeah,
right.
yeah. It was the one on your SoundCloud, and I'll tell people are wondering. Obviously, it was when your last one was with Fantastic Chrissy, or Kissy, I should say, Kissy Wade, back in 2020.
Oh, right, yeah. So I should clarify that is exactly what goes on my Disability Arts Online blog
Yeah, that's what.
when
Yeah,
I
that's because
interview.
people too. That's why I found it on there, and I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so basically, SoundCloud is just what they recommend Disability Arts Online. I mean, it's SoundCloud is what Disability Arts Online recommend as a platform to share any audio. So that's not actually a separate entity. It's for the blog and then
Ah,
the
right.
text
Yeah,
of the
needs
interview
clarifying that.
goes
Yeah,
underneath. Yeah. But
that's
it would
fine.
but it would be on SoundCloud also under my name,
Yeah,
wouldn't
of
it?
course.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
it was.
that's
Yeah.
why
That's why I
that
wasn't sure about that. Yeah, that's fine. So
yeah.
brilliant. Okie dokie then. Right, yeah. Tell us about your next thing. Obviously, we hinted at a few moments ago. University lecturer then, because this I found quite interesting before.
Yeah, so I had the privilege of training as a associate university lecturer, which basically just means not a senior one. To
Of
be a
course.
senior, you need a lot more hours of experience and a few years in work. I had the privilege of doing the associate lecturer, which is the first level of teaching at university before COVID. And I passed it the first time, thank goodness, because it was a lot of work at the same time as my PhD. And the weirdest thing about it, Andy, was having someone watch teenagers teaching them.
Hmm.
So like every few weeks I would have like a mentor who would come in and take notes on me while I was teaching. And that just felt so strange because it was like
Yeah.
she was watching me teaching them, and then the students are watching her. I can tell, thinking, oh, what's she writing? And I'm thinking, oh gosh, what's she writing? And I'm pointing at the PowerPoint,
Oh,
trying to
yikes.
act natural. And it's just sort of like this weird three-way mirror thing, I beg your pardon,
Ooh.
going on in that moment. And it was all fine. Like I passed all of the observations, but it was so odd. Like it was almost like
Oh,
I was panicking about what she was writing rather than my lesson plan, which was
oh, yikes.
thankfully fine. But yeah, it was just a little bit like, and then you don't find out till afterwards what she's written, so it's a bit of a mystery.
Yeah, a bit
Um,
disconcerting to do a word I'd use for that. Definitely, it put me right off it would.
and I think the only gutting thing is after I've qualified, which was back in by the end of 2017, I got the accreditation. Is I haven't been able to get a teaching position, which is gutting because I loved it. And to get 18-year-olds in their first year at university to write an essay that makes sense and that passes the criteria is a huge achievement, because a lot of them haven't done much before. They don't really know university sort of marking levels. And yeah, I think yeah, COVID got in the way a lot. And now I'm just a bit like, I'd love to teach, but I haven't found a position yet.
Yeah, you're not
But
found
never
one
say never.
that's. I always say it's not one suitable for your needs at the moment. Definitely, always, or skill set is a better word for it. Yeah, no, I get you completely. Some of it. So I've done teaching myself over the years, and nowadays I like listening more than podcasting. So I know what you mean. So brilliant.
Yeah, yeah.
But Brent, obviously now, I want to talk to you really about your book today as well. So obviously, like, your debut poetry collection came out all the way back in 2017, The
Yeah,
Dark
it did.
Side of Life. Now, I've read bits of this online. Certainly, I know what I can see what direction the topic was going to be because of your background. But tell us about the book then, first of all, then, and what made you want to bring this
Oh,
book out?
okay. Well, casting my mind back. So sorry, just a slight correction there. It's the dark side of light,
Oh,
but
did I
I
say
can,
that one?
yeah, sorry. You
Shit for
said
brains.
life.
Oh well,
I don't know.
typical,
I
but
don't know how the
typical.
editing process is going to go. I just thought I'd drop that in so that you had the
Yeah, don't worry
right
about it, right?
moment.
It's me being shit
Um,
for brains.
so how that came about, that was very unexpected and strange. Um, I was in a Weatherspoons, I believe, in Bridport, if my memory serves me right, and a friend of a friend had read some of my poems that I just clipped together in, those little like books that you can convert to A5 and then just put staples in.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah, like a
I
pamphlet, and yeah, of
yeah,
course.
like a little pamphlet, and I just given them out to various people and not really thought anything about it. And this particular person was like, "Oh, I don't really do publishing anymore." So publishing wasn't even in my head. I was just like, I know him, he knows me, he can have one as well. And then in this Weatherspoons in Bridport, he turned around and said he wanted to do a book of some of these poems. And I sort of said, I'm sorry, what? Whilst choking on my very fashionable J2O drink. And so it happened. And it but the actual book itself, I would like to emphasize, actually took me about 4 years. If you take into account all the different poems I used, the edits, the different things. But the book was actually published, I think, within 12 months of us agreeing to publish it. But the content spans 4 years, if that makes any sense, of my life.
Yeah, yeah, it does. It
Um,
does. It does. Because I'm
so
always a believer in poetry books. It's not something you can knock out in a couple of weeks. It takes
oh
too much
no, no,
time.
it takes, and also like the ordering. Oh, that was a nightmare, and it still haunts me. Did I put these poems in the right order in order for them to have the best effect on the reader possible, and not drag them down too far, but not lift them up too far and then drag them down, like mood wise? Does that make sense?
No, it does.
Because
Does. I think when
yeah,
you're doing a book, it's like a poetry book is very different to a novel. I'm sure you'd agree with me. It's like you've got to lead the audience into it and then move it along, haven't you? And then at the end of it, perhaps either explode or fade down. Yeah, yeah, I get it completely. So
yeah, it's really difficult. I mean, and it is. is still available on Amazon, but I don't really think it's how I write anymore. As people can judge for themselves later.
Hmm.
But I really value it because some of it started on my iPhone when I was in hospital very poorly. And there was no Wi-Fi and the TV was just stuck on a non-existent channel. And as I started to get a bit stronger, I was just like tapping stuff out on my phone. And these very disorganized drafts, a lot of them became part of the book, and hence the title. It's not the greatest because I was very, very sick to the point where they weren't putting me with other patients. So a lot of it is quite downcast, but there is some beauty in it as well.
Yeah. No, I get it completely of
Yeah.
it. So yeah, I think you do is like when you're writing, like yeah, I told you already, I've done several books, and each book of mine's a reaction to the previous book, and I
Yeah.
can sometimes certain the first book, and I had to go back and redo the first book, because I wasn't after time I wasn't happy with it. It's reflected the
Yeah.
way it was at the time. Yeah, no, I get completely with it straight away with it. So yeah, well, like I said,
Yeah.
it's
So I mean, it's obviously really important because it was the first time I actually got to read any poetry out loud. Sorry, the
mm,
first time I ever got to read any poetry out loud to an audience, and the first time I had to really think about other people reading my poems, because poetry writing was sporadic up to 2015, and I certainly didn't show my poems to anyone else till a few years later than that,
yeah, of course.
even if they ended up in the book. So it was an important part of my journey. So I'm not in any way devaluing it. I'm just saying things are different now.
Yeah,
Um,
life is always different, definitely with it straight away. So,
yeah,
I get it complete now. I want to start wrapping up this part in a few moments anyway. So I want to give you plenty of chance to read out some of your poems in the second half anyway, okay?
yeah.
Now, obviously, I always like to ask a couple of things to wrap up with now. Obviously, what plans do you have going forward for your creativity? Is there anything you can reveal?
Oh, plans going forward. Do you know what? If there's if there's anybody listening,
Hmm.
that is looking for to represent, should we say, if there's anybody listening and you'd like to represent marginalized writers, so writers with disabilities, writers from a working class, low income background, I'm here with Enreal of the last few years. I would love to do a second book, and I'm not saying it doesn't need work. I would love to have the backing of another publisher and do another book. What I'm definitely going to be doing, I am going to be hopefully passing my BSL level 1 uh, signing for the deaf training course. I think we finish in May. Uh,
Ooh, fingers
watch this
crossed.
space. And obviously, what have I got? I've got 3 of the 9 parts of the Hunger Games on YouTube. So definitely part 9 needs to come out before the end of the year and be up there and be running. I'd also like to get back to like open mic nights, but it's harder now. There are less on Zoom because of access. So again, if anybody wants to drop me a message, maybe Andy, you could put my email
Yeah.
in because I don't have an official website. And you run a Zoom open mic monthly or fortnightly, or let me know. Because a lot of them have shrunk in size or discontinued. Because I miss performing it
Yeah, fair
sometimes.
play, fair play. I know what you mean. Like I try and go to a couple. It's when it's getting time. In my case, all the time. I know what you mean with that straight away. Now,
Yeah.
obviously, then, and I was going to ask you next, and obviously to confirm to people, obviously, like your debut book is still available on Amazon, so you can soon find out. That's fine. If people want to
Yeah.
contact you, obviously you can give me your email address, and I'll put that on the write up of this podcast. Is there any other ways people can contact you as well?
Yeah, the easiest way is, I'll try and check it more often, is my Twitter handle, which is just at Kay Channon. So my name, remember Kay has no E on the end, and you will you will find me, because on Twitter, the Dark Side of Light, which is my debut poetry book, I believe is my profile picture still. The little round one, not the big banner
Yeah,
picture.
of course, that's fine.
Yeah, you follow me. And then if I ever release or have a poem published or release a part of the Hunger Games film on YouTube, you will see it. If I release a disability arts online blog of any sort, you will see it. That's usually what I mainly use it for, or a YouTube video. I have a YouTube channel, which again, Andy can put in, but if you search my name on YouTube, beg your pardon, it should come up. So if you search my name on YouTube and just press return, it should come up. And it has the Dark Side of Light logo as well, so you know it's me. That's pretty much me.
Brilliant,
In terms of
brilliant.
contacts.
Brilliant.
Yes.
What we'll then do is wrap up part one for you, Kay. We'll let you go
Yeah.
and get composed for us, and you'll read out a few pieces for us in the second half.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I
Great.
just
It's
need
been
to
great stuff.
grab the.
Right. We'll wrap up when we stop the recording, and we'll see everybody in 2 shakes of the dice.